What's going on, Legionnaires, and welcome back to Comic Breakdown. If you guys are new to the channel, do me a favor and hit that sub button. Hit that notification bell, make sure you don't miss any of the awesome content we have coming out. Now for this video, we're going to be jumping into some Action Comics, Superman, issue 1031. Now if you haven't been keeping up with this line, go ahead and check out the link in my description, as well at the top of this video. It's going to get you completely caught up on everything that's been going on in this line. Now this is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. Artist is Daniel Sampier, and with that being said, let's dive into this breakdown. Alright guys, so as we get into this issue, we're picking up where the last one left off. Now the last one left us with Warworld invading. Not only is Warworld invading, but Clark Kent, he heard a prayer that sounded a lot like Kryptonian. And that's where this issue is picking us up. We pick up with Clark Kent finding the individual he heard this prayer from. And he speaks in Kryptonian. And he lets the individuals inside the ship know that his name is Clark and he is here to help them. And with that, Clark takes off. He takes off because right now, there is a crap ton of Warworld ships trying to bring this ship down. And Superboy, he asks Superman, like, what is going on? Like, why are they trying to take down their own ship? But Superman lets him know that there's refugees inside of that ship. And Superman, he's going to do everything that he can do. And so he flies up into the sky, and one by one, he starts taking out the Warworld ships, just like they are absolutely nothing. And as he's battling all of this, he can't help but remember Kandor, all the lives that had been lost, all the refugees that could have been saved. But this day, he is not going to let these refugees die. He is going to save them. Their heartbeats are faint, but he is going to do everything in his power to ensure that they live this day. And we see Clark just absolutely devastating all of these Warworld ships. But this is where John calls out for help, because the refugee ship, it is falling apart. It is literally falling to pieces, and Jonathan can't keep it in the air any longer. This thing's about to crash land. And so Superman, seeing the ship going down, he flies inside of the refugee ship, grabbing the refugees and getting them out of there before it falls into the ocean. And this is where we see the ship, or what's remaining of the ship, collapse in a burning flame down into the ocean. And what's remaining of the Warworld ships, they take off. They leave with Superman holding these refugees in his arms, not really sure who they are, where they came from, and he can't even be certain if he actually heard the prayer that he thinks he heard. But on one of their hands is a brand mark of Superman's sigil. And so Superman takes them back to the fortress, and Kalex is doing everything in his power to keep them alive. But it is no exaggeration to say that they are literally falling apart, and not from anything that happened to them today. You know, they have everything from parasites to black lung, extreme malnutrition, inflammation of every kind, everywhere, stress fractures everywhere. Like, they have literally endured the worst of the worst. And this is where Clark lets Supergirl and Superboy know that he thinks that they whispered something, an old prayer. And it's not coincidence that one of them have the Superman sigil branded in her hand. And so Clark Kent intends to go and find the answers. And he starts by going to the ship. Now the ship has gone underwater and the Atlanteans now have control of the ship. But for the most part, this thing is a just heap of junk. There's absolutely no good to it whatsoever. And right now, they don't really have any answers for Clark. You know, they're salvaging what they can, but this ship was falling apart before it even struck the water. And the engineers have let them know that this ship was patched together. You know, it's got parts from 100 different worlds. They're honestly surprised that this thing was even flying. If Superman hadn't said that this thing was flying up in the air, they wouldn't have believed him. But Superman, he really wants to find out why it was so important in capturing these refugees. But so far, they don't really have any answers onto why. But this is where they get informed that there's some more information, not necessarily about refugees, but what is actually powering this ship. Now, the Atlantean scientists, they say it's an element that's never been documented before, but the substance it most closely resembles is Source. Now, Superman, he wants to take it back to the fortress, but the Atlanteans, they have claimed this as theirs. It is landed in the ocean and thus it belongs to Atlanteans. And they say it's just simply, it's too fragile and too valuable for them to give up to anybody else. You know, even right now, it gives off such a raw energy that their instruments can't even quantify it. It could be the most valuable thing the Atlanteans have ever found. But they also let them know that there was a ton of prisoners aboard this ship. The prisoners, the Atlanteans, refer to them more as animals though. And so Superman goes and takes a look at these guys. And they find all of the creatures that were left behind. All of them that they found anyway. Now Superman asks, like, why are these guys in chains? Like, surely that's not necessary. And Superman goes inside one of these little prison cubes that the Atlanteans have made. And they let Superman know, you know, these guys were already wearing these. They tried to remove the chains, but they weren't having it. You know, the way they fought, you would think that they were trying to put chains onto them. And this is when one Gordon looking dude from Mortal Kombat, he says a broken Superman. And so he knows exactly who this guy is. And he's kind of making a joke about him, kind of making fun of him, kind of acting like he could probably take him on. And so Superman going in here tries talking to them, tries having a conversation, and Superman, you know, he's like, this is pointless. He breaks their chains, and this is when the big guy moves towards Superman and just starts attacking him. But it does absolutely nothing to Superman. This guy punches Superman, makes his own hand bleed, and then headbutts him, only to crack his whole freaking skull open. And in his broken language, he says something Superman, something Mongol. Now back with Supergirl and Superboy, Supergirl is letting us know that there's no record showing any other off-world flights leading up to the explosion. Everyone who left Krypton came back except for Kal-El and her. And so they want to look further back. But right now, John is convinced that those refugees, they can't be Kryptonian. You know, one look at their cell structure proves that it's not true, that their cells aren't even reacting to the solar radiation like theirs is. And the language that the girl spoke to Clark, the prayer that she said, it wasn't necessarily Kryptonese. It's from a dead language called Valkyrie. But the thing is, nobody but a Kryptonian would know that language. And even then, there's not many Kryptonians that would know that language. And they have to rule out the idea of them being time travelers, because Theseus isn't necessarily a god in her prayer. Theseus is a Kryptonian scientist who was executed for her devotion to what she thought to be the truth. In Earth terms, she was like a Galileo. You know, nobody would necessarily pray to Galileo or Socrates. But John, he is convinced up to this point that this is all a trap. That Mongul is setting a trap to lure Superman back to Warworld. And John takes off. He's like, you know, this isn't going to end the way you guys think it's going to end. Now, this is where we see the young refugee, the young girl sitting at the Fortress of Solitude, and she's starting to wake up from her stasis. Waking up, looking at her hands, seeing the Superman sigil branded on both hands. And immediately, she is alarmed. She's in chains and she's kind of freaking out. She's walking around, going, trying to figure out what's going on here. And Kal-El comes up to try to greet her, but this is where she meets Kal-El with extreme hostility and just breaks the crap out of him. And as we see her, literally eyes filling up with tears, she is hearing a voice in her head, a voice from Warworld, a voice that brought her here, letting her know that she is pretty much absolutely nothing, and that her people were rescued by he who holds all chains. And her miserable kind, they chose to wear the mark of the enemy. And Mongul lets her know that she is the reason that her kind now suffers. It is not his hand that burns the Superman sigil into their skin, but it is hers. But Mongul is merciful, and though they are lesser beings, he has a task for them. He has chosen them to be the instrument of his judgment, and he is tasking them with a secret purpose. He is going to send her to the one who wears the sigil, the one that they call Superman, and what she does next will determine what happens to the fate of her kind. And that will be the end of this issue. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. You know, personally, I'm thoroughly enjoying this. We saw in Future State Superman going to Warworld, so we know that he's eventually going to end up there. And I think that Mongul is appealing to the good nature of Superman. Seeing refugees, seeing people that are imprisoned. This is something that Superman, he can't tolerate, he can't stand by and watch happen. Especially, you know, when they're, or at least he's believing that them to be some kind of Kryptonians. And we can only imagine that with Jonathan and Supergirl here on Earth, that he thinks it's safe for him to be able to leave. That there is two, you know, people with the Superman sigil on their chest protecting Earth. And so this is all the build-up. This is all how Mongul really was able to get Superman onto Warworld, was able to capture him and pretty much put him into like ridiculous gladiator fights for years and years to come. But yeah, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you have not yet, do me a favor, hit that sub button, hit that notification bell, make sure you don't miss any of the awesome content we have coming out, and until the next breakdown,